So the Singapore Sevens final is here. New Zealand taking on Argentina. Now, we got to see this in Hong Kong as a quarterfinal fixture, but this one, it will mean that little bit more as both sides fighting off for the gold medal. But throughout this preview, we will be looking at previous fixtures, key players for both of these sides, and then at the end, we will give our prediction of who we think will be winning this final. But jumping straight into it, previous fixtures for New Zealand, their first game was up against Hong Kong, China. They were able to win that one 47 points to 0. So quite a one-sided affair for their first match. In Singapore, then their next game was up against the Australians. There's a bit of a trend for New Zealand, and that was as they made their way through more games, the game slowly got that little bit closer. Their second game up against the Australians, 24 points to 12. And then their final game of pool stages was up against the South Africans, in which they were able to win it 12 points to 7. Then jumping into their quarterfinal fixture, it was up against Great Britain. They were able to win that game, though, with a little bit more of a points differential, 22 points to 10 in that contest. In the first half, they were playing extremely well. Second half, it dropped off a little bit, though, which was why this next game up against Fiji in the semi-finals was going to be such a concern. But the Kiwis, they were able to handle that pressure, managed to get themselves the 19 points to 10 victory over the Fijians, which was a massive win considering how strong the Fijians have been in the past, and also the fact that that was actually who they were up against in the Hong Kong Sevens final. But instead, the Fijians now, they will be playing off against the Samoans, which I think is a game that I'm just as excited for as this final. Pacific Island side versus Pacific Island side, always a great matchup indeed. Then for Argentina, they were a part of Pool D. They had Ireland as their first contest. They won it 10 points to 0. Second game, a lot more one-sided, 42 points to 7. The Pumas were able to win over Japan. And then their third game up against Great Britain, quite a seesaw one, 19 points to 17. But Los Pumas got themselves the victory, so they went 3 from 3 in their group stage matches, just like New Zealand. So both of these sides at this point of the competition undefeated. Someone will keep that streak alive and the other side will be handed their first loss. But then in the quarterfinals, it was Argentina taking on Australia, able to win that game 29 points to 12. They're not very close, but Argentina, they just managed to hang on to the ball a lot more in that fixture, putting the Aussies under pressure and making the most of the opportunities when they did have them show up. Then their next game was up against Samoa. It was a thriller of a contest. For me, match of the competition so far. 19 points to 19 at the end of full time, which meant we went to golden point, and it was none other than Marcos Maneta who was able to score the final try needed for Argentina to win that game, 24 points to 19. So those are the fixtures that these two sides have played. Now looking through at some key players for New Zealand, Akulio Rokalisoa, straight away the first name that comes to mind. The way that he has been able to play throughout not just this leg of the Sevens, but throughout all of 2023 has been sensational. And he was one of those big reasons why New Zealand are sitting number 1 in the Sevens rankings at this current date. Although the team that's in number 2, Argentina. So that is why this game is such an exciting one. Another name for New Zealand, Leroy Carter, running hard at the line. I think that he will enjoy this game up against Los Pumas, because one thing that you can guarantee, Argentina are going to play with passion. And I see Leroy Carter as one of those players, he likes a bit of push and shove, but I think that's just because he's a bit feisty. He's very passionate for the Kiwis. So I think he will have a few interesting battles out there on the field up against the Pumas. And then the third name for the Kiwis to watch out for in this matchup, I am going to go with Sione Molia. Got himself a couple crucial turnovers in the last match up against the Fijians. Game before that ended up with a yellow card, but since then has seemed to bounce back pretty well indeed. Now looking at Los Pumas, I mentioned his name just before, Marcos Maneta. 2 tries in that last game up against the Samoans, including the one that secured them this spot through to this final. He's quick. He's got the kick and behind option that he often does like to go to, but even when teams know it's coming, they don't seem to be able to stop him because of that pace that Maneta does have. But alongside him, I am going to be going with Rodrigo Isgro. He's been very involved for Los Pumas throughout this competition. He's actually been one of the players who are chasing after those kicks in behind. And I think that's what makes the Pumas so dangerous at the moment. The fact that they can either kick in behind, put it out wide, hit it up in the forwards. And any way that they decide to do it, you've still got to commit plenty of defenders to that move because of how dangerous they can be. They've got a very good mix at the moment I think it may help them towards some future victories. And then the last player, I am going with Gaston Ravol, the veteran of the Argentine side. He was there in that game where they were able to beat South Africa in the Olympics. Was red carded in that match, but he did start that game before that happened. So he's had that experience. He has been a key figure in this Los Pumas 7 side. And I feel like it's one of those games that the older players, the more experienced players, if they can do things right, the younger players, they will also follow. But now we are up to that stage of a prediction. This one's extremely tough. From what I saw in Argentina's game up against Samoa, they have got a lot of momentum heading into this game. The fact that they were able to fight back from being down up against the Samoans, which I feel they just got a little bit caught out with the tempo that Samoa started that game at, not quite getting the hang of it early, but they came back, still found a way to win. New Zealand's last couple games, they were better in the match up against the Fijians compared to Great Britain. It's just whether or not that big game up against Fiji has taken the wind out of the Kiwis' sails. I am going to say New Zealand win this game by 7, 26 points to 19. I can see it being a high-scoring game. Argentina, they went to golden point time with Samoa. I think they'll be a little bit more worn out than a lot of people do think. But thank you all very much for tuning in to this preview. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. We're going to be doing the live commentary for the final on the channel as well, so be sure to check that out. But thank you all very much for tuning in. I will see you all for the next one.